threat and a present determination to carry out the threat. I'm actually glomming together multiple definitions under the law. But the fact that the number 86 and the number 47 were put together and posted by James Comey, seashells he came upon at the beach, no less, to say that the singular meaning of that is to kill, and that James Comey was expressing an intent to carry it out is just beyond absurd.
The argument could be made that, look, if the Trump administration did really try to prosecute this kind of thing, it would very likely be laughed out of court, unless, of course, they came in front of somebody like Judge Aileen Cannon, who would then be happy to humor them. But most likely, this thing would be laughed out of court. But do you think that their real goal here is to try and actually prosecute this case, or is there some broader effort that they're trying to usher in by virtue of doing this?
So I think the intimidation is the point. I think they're trying to send the signal that we will go after anybody, including a former FBI director and former U.S. attorney, if he displeases dear leader or has displeased dear leader in some way. I think this is thick with irony because James Comey is the one who, opened his mouth about a pending investigation when he shouldn't have, involving Hillary Clinton, which may have factored into her losing a presidential election to Donald Trump the first go round. So I think there's some irony here that is not escaping us. But yeah, this is about threats. It's about intimidation. It's about trying to instill fear. But I got to tell you, Brian, any judge, with the exception of perhaps Aileen Cannon, as you mentioned, any judge would throw this out and would probably refer for sanctions or ethical investigations any prosecutor who had his or her fingerprints on bringing a case like that. Now, let me also say that would it shock me if they opened the grand jury investigation and began subpoenaing in witnesses, under the guise of, well, we have to take this seriously and we're going to need to investigate it? I am sorry to say, even though that would be an abuse of the grand jury and abuse of the powers of the Department of Justice, wouldn't surprise me.
Glenn, we've spoken about the ways in which this is very clearly an abuse of Trump's power in the federal government and Kristi Noem's power in the federal government. And so do you have any confidence that Ed Martin, who is now in charge of this new commission against the abuse of government, Commission Against Government Overreach, is going to use his power to slap down the Trump administration for their egregious behavior?
Yeah, again, it's ironic that Ed Martin is put in charge of the Weaponization and Overreach Committee, which, is just absurd. He will be at DOJ doing Donald Trump's dirty bidding, in one form or another. But no, I don't have confidence in Ed Martin to, make change for $1 for me, never mind involve himself in any, legitimate criminal investigation.
And finally, is there some type of recourse that somebody like James Comey could take on the Trump administration? I mean, normally, if this was not the federal government bringing this case, if this was just a regular person, there might be some recourse in the way of a countersuit. There are protections against slap suits or frivolous lawsuits. Comey, again, could countersue for emotional distress, whatever it may be. But when it's the federal government bringing these cases against you, you have to deal with the emotional stress of contending with a lawsuit against the federal government. You have to bear the brunt of these costs so that even if it's a complete home run on your end, you still have to pay for a lawyer to be able to defend you. That means you may rack up costs of tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the way. And so is there any way when James Comey or anybody is targeted by the federal government that they become whole in the way that you could find ways to make yourself whole when it's a lawsuit not against the federal government?
The answer is no. There is no way for people to be made whole when the Department of Justice is abusing its power and going after people just for the sheer political retribution of it. That being said, I have a feeling there would be any number of lawyers who would represent James Comey pro bono for free in the event the Department of Justice was foolish enough and vindictive and unethical enough to actually initiate a criminal investigation, misinterpreting the number 86, contrary to the dictionary definition. I mean, on the upside, Kristi Noem is not a prosecutor at the Department of Justice. She's the director of Homeland Security. So
Oh, but you know, she cosplays as whatever costume she's able to find in her closet that day. She'll get her, you know, her shield and body armor and go down to the border and pretend that she's wading through the deep murky waters of the Rio Grande on Monday, and then by Tuesday she's got her sword in hand and traversing the long desert stretches, and Wednesday she's barreling down doors in foreign remote castles, whatever however she can cosplay is what she turns into that day. So if she wants to be a DOJ officer, it's, all she has to do is get the jacket, and all of a sudden she's manifested that into reality for herself.
Yeah, and let's not forget posing in front of Venezuelan immigrants who were being, it seems, unlawfully detained in an El Salvadoran prison, flashing her $50,000 Rolex watch. I would say a la Abu Ghraib, and that didn't end up so well. She's a stone cold clown, and she's shown herself to be a stone cold clown. And her opinion about what is or is not a crime and what should or should not be prosecuted, means exactly bupkis.
So then, do you have any concern that this White House will recognize the damage that they can wrought onto their political opponents, and then just continue to abuse the legal system and wage these legal fights against folks, knowing full well that even if they don't go anywhere, the costs, both emotional and financial, are enough to destroy a lot of the people who they want to destroy?
Yeah, let's be clear. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And it's kind of laughable when the number 86 does not, in the dictionary definition of the term, connote violence. So there is no threats charge that would be supported by those shells on the beach. And you compare that to Donald Trump, who posted a picture of himself wielding a baseball bat, appearing to be in mid-swing at the head of Alvin Bragg in the next picture, who was holding up his hands in what looked like a defensive posture while Alvin Bragg was prosecuting Donald Trump. That would be a potentially chargeable threat.
Knowing how frivolous this is there the possibility that the lawyers who do try to argue this case could be sanctioned? Or is it just that the DOJ has its prerogative to be able to bring whatever cases it wants, and if the case doesn't have merit, it'll be thrown out, but there's not necessarily any personal liability or professional liability for the lawyers who try to argue on behalf of the DOJ?
Oh, Brian, there are always professional consequences for lawyers who go into court and do the unethical thing. We've already seen some of these third-rate DOJ lawyers, with apologies to actual third-rate lawyers, go in and incur the wrath of judges and be on the receiving end of rulings like that came in the Abrego Garcia case from Judge Sines, where she said the DOJ lawyers are presenting me with falsehoods and are acting in willful bad faith. You bet. Words like that coming from a federal court judge have professional repercussions, because those warrant bar counsel referrals for ethics investigations. So how many lawyers are going to be willing to throw themselves on the sword for Donald Trump and Pam Bondi is an open question. It always surprises me that any self-respecting lawyer would do it. But consequences will come if people are involved in bad faith, evidence-free prosecutions.
And that is check, exactly what we have here. So, look, we will, of course, stay on top of this issue and other issues as the Department of Justice, as the Trump administration continues to abuse its power and go after its political opponents. For those who are watching, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on the screen. It's the best way to follow along with our work and to support independent media more broadly. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.